Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope you had a nice short break. We're continuing the summit with a next session on bringing openBIM workflows to life. We will have two recorded presentations, one from Michelangelo from ACCA and one from Calvin Cam from SBI International, who will provide you some really nice practical insights on projects that they have done using a multitude of standards and solutions. But before that, I will start sharing my screen to do a short introduction and hopefully bring you some insights in a couple of the new things that we are doing. So, as you know, and we also closed the previous tech update presentation, this year is all for us, it's all about getting closer to end users, also helping end users define their workflows, help define user guides. We introduced this concept of accelerated projects. So all of that is really to bring this spaghetti of different abbreviations and tools and standards to life in a real project. So what we actually did was define a lot of these workflows, typical workflows. So the workflows that we defined and that you will see on the Miro link are what's the step-by-step approach to define your requirements, either project requirements or company-specific requirements, how to do effective authoring, how to add or extend your data, how to do validation, and a block on sharing and retrieving information. So all of these blocks combine commercial tools, open standards, API standards, technical services from buildingSMART, and other solutions. And I know it can be a really complex, complete set of a lot of different initiatives, but these workflows really, we hope to provide a step-by-step approach. And I think Dan has shared the link by now in the chat, so you can also follow them yourself. Just a quick introduction. We only did the most common flows. These slides provide a quick overview where you can follow them up on the Miro link that will be available for everyone. Details on these flows will also become available in the knowledge base that Aidan already introduced on the user site. And you can also help speed this up by doing an accelerated project together with us. So if you have a large project, if you really want to define your own internal processes or your project set up better, just contact us and we can accelerate this work in an accelerated project. What you will find on the Miro link, and I'm sure most of you will already be looking at it right now and moved away from the tab where this presentation is running, but just quickly, there's a color coding in there as well. Blue are the buildingSMART services like the bSDD, the UCM. Green are external tools, just commercial tools that you can buy somewhere. Yellow is under development, but has strong commitment from the industry. So we expect that to be available quite soon, within a couple of months. Red are the blocks that are still missing. Fortunately, you won't see too many of those. And purple is a reference to another block in the flowchart or to another program. So just quickly going over a couple of them. So I think the most complex one is already the first one, defining requirements. You can have project-specific requirements in a one-time flow for one project, but we also see a lot of clients who define requirements multiple times and constantly come back to the same kind of requirements. So for those users, we would have the buildingSMART data dictionary that can host your project-specific or company-specific requirements. The use case management service can help you to get inspired, to make sure that you have a flying start where we can find templates for project setups. And the new IDS standard would also definitely help you to speed up things and to force you to really think about defining your project-specific requirements and having the ability to automatically check them against IFC as well. So just quickly, a quick overview on this defining requirement setup. The use case management service really helps you to get inspired, even provides the best practice for your situation, You can download that and get a template and a flying start. The new IDS standard really defines a precise definition of your requirements. And if you do this more often, then publishing your requirements as a generic set that can be reused and fine-tuned for each project, that's really where the bSDD comes in. So again, the Miro link can be found in the chat. You can really go through it step by step. And if you're interested in to see how this really works on your mega project or even your very small one-off project, please contact us. We really want to help you define an accelerated project to get this going. Then the next block is authoring. So a BIM author is a ISO 9650 term of someone who is sitting behind a computer using one of the BIM tools to actually create data. This flow also looks very complex, but when you go into detail, you would see that most of the choices are about, are you using someone else's data? Are you using that as a reference? Are you importing that? And this is also where the bSDD can support a BIM author to work very effective and efficient. So you see there's still some parts missing here as well in red. So bSDD plugins in BIM authoring tools is something that is high priority for us, and we're also really trying to engage with the software vendors to accelerate this development. Just a short technical update. The bSDD has these unique identifiers, and we also see examples now where these URIs, these unique identifiers, are being stored inside the IFC file. So you would always have the source of a property and the source of a definition or a classification reference inside the IFC file. And that would make it also easier to do consistent validation. And I think Michelangelo in the next presentation from ACCA will also dive into that, on how they did that. So on authoring, so this is mostly already available in BIM authoring tools. This is about IFC import and export. There's a relation, of course, with sharing that data with others. So that's the sharing and retrieving block. And what's important for us here is that we really try to accelerate this bSDD support. This could really massively help improve the effectiveness of BIM authoring, but also the information consistency of the IFC output. So definitely high on the list for us to accelerate that. Then the BIM extender use case and flow. So this is not really a very known use case, but we do see it coming up more and more. So in short, the use case here is I'm getting an IFC data set, an IFC file, or access to IFC data on a CDE, and I need to add something to that. I need to add a property set to it. I need to add some classifications to it, whatever. And this flow really shows how you can do that in an easy and effective way. And this, I think this is also what will come back in the presentation from Michelangelo, where they add ETIM classifications and ETIM properties to an existing IFC data set. So this BIM extender use case is getting more and more common. It has a natural relationship with the bSDD. We see it mostly done using a CDE. So you get access to an online platform. You add additional properties to an IFC data set. And of course, because it is done on a CDE, there's a strong relationship with the OpenCDE APIs approach as well. This is also where you would see an API development on defining property exchange APIs coming up somewhere this year. And again, a good example of this in the ACCA demo. Then the validation block. So there's 3 types of validation. As you can see, we're talking about the just to be clear, we're talking about the validation service from buildingSMART. There's a lot of validation tools commercially out there as well that we don't want to compete with and are doing a really good job. What this shows is the workflow on how you can use the validation service of buildingSMART, which is strongly connected to the bSDD. So what happens here is that an IFC file is always being checked against the schema. Is this a valid IFC dataset compared to a certain version of the schema? When there's an IDS file accompanied with that IFC, we really want to invite you to use the commercial tools who support IFC and IDS validation. The buildingSMART validation service does not do that kind of validation. But what you can do is validate the content inside your IFC file against the bSDD. So, for example, if you use a certain classification that says that that object is load-bearing and is on the outside, is external, then the properties, the values of those properties should also be load-bearing and is external, would be set to true. So those kind of relations between classifications and property values are stored in the bSDD, and the validation service checks against those bSDD standards. So depending on if the URIs are inside the bSDD, this validation could be 100% reliable or giving a really good indication. So this is also a stimulus to really make sure that you implement these URIs from the bSDD in the BIM extender as well. So wrapping up on this one, again, most common validation is done by commercial tools. We don't want to compete with that. We're trying to add something that is mostly bSDD related. It's very data focused. We don't do geometry visualization. It really focuses on information consistency coming from bSDD. And it works best when there's this full ecosystem support with URIs, BCF, and APIs. As I already mentioned in my technical update, we have a beta service available of this. So if you want to test it, then please reach out to me. I can give you access. And then the final common workflow that we defined is just the sharing and retrieving. Most commonly, this is still done by sharing data over email or using some kind of a document management system. But we see data being shared over a CDE more and more, and that this is also where the openCDE API standardization comes in. So it's also very important to take notice of this of these new workflows. This openCDE API, Documents API, is currently in the usability testing phase. So there's an advanced user group currently testing this, and I do expect that the project would publish a final version, final standard somewhere before summer, although I don't want to raise expectations too high. So these are the most common workflows that we shared using this Miro link. Feel free to just revisit them later as well. But there's also more, obviously. So there's how do you do BIM and GIS integration. Actually, BIM and GIS integration is already can be split into 4 completely separate topics. We have a very nice use case on automatic product proposals, manufactured products using this GS1 digital link system, automated energy simulations in the cloud. So there's a lot more use cases that you can come up with. And I really hope to be able to share more and more this year. Please also take note of this knowledge base that will be launched somewhere in by the end of April around the user conference. And of course, the use case management system is something that you can also use to share your best practices and your workflows with others. So that's as a first introduction. If you saw anything that you like, please feel free to contact me. And I think this, as a short introduction, would suffice. And it would be probably nice if we would, let me stop sharing, if we would immediately dive into one of the presentations from ACCA to see how this whole ecosystem works together in a combination in a real project. So I think Michelangelo is in the call as well. Hi, Michelangelo.
Yes, thank you, Léon. Hi, everyone. I am Michelangelo Cianciulli, and I'm an openBIM and IFC expert at ACCA Software. So yeah, today we want to talk about those openBIM workflows, that is to have the possibility to not only define, but also to exchange and validate data in open formats, of course, such as to guarantee the high quality and automated processes that really can bring real benefits to all the parties that are involved in any aspect of the construction industry. In particular, we will see a video that we filmed also with the collaboration of Léon when visiting our headquarters that will show the use of different openBIM standards, tools, and services in action in order to create in practice such flows of open data. And I really think that the video helps in starting thinking about those open data flows, because what we will see is just some possibilities. So you can really start thinking about the data that you maybe need to request or that you want to receive. But maybe for doing this, this is not a really straightforward process. So you need to iterate over this process to make it better. But the point is that now you have the tools and the standards that support this to make this happen. So you really can start raise the quality of your openBIM data. And then maybe you can start defining and measure against your KPIs, so your key performance indicators. So you can really start measuring the benefits in the use of such open data. And then hopefully, as also we have seen from previous presentations, then you will also share your findings and your best practice with the BSI community as well, in order to share knowledge with the others and also learn from others to grow even faster. Before looking at the video, I would say that for us at ACCA, the real turning point was when we started looking at the IFC models, not just as a static snapshot in time of the built asset, but as a model that evolves over time and gets updated from all the actors involved in the construction industry, basically. So I would say, yeah, let's have a look at the video.
It's great to have you here, Léon, today, talking about software.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here. It's a very nice environment, and really see that this pushes innovation for openBIM. I think what I really like about the ACCA solutions is that they understand the integration of the different parts of the technical roadmap. So having the ability to define client requirements, having the ability to validate them, but also even having one of the first solutions as an example of this BIM extender, where you use the bSDD and the efficiency to enrich your data in a very effective way, keeping the information consistency. Really excited to see that full workflow covered by the different ACCA products.
Well, perfect. Let's see this in action.
Looking forward.
We are going to look at how the use of open standards, tools and services can bring openBIM workflows to life. Let's start with the use case from ANAS, Italian stakeholder for public roads and bridges, and how, thanks to the use of the IDS standard from buildingSMART, from using papers or PDF, they can now instead specify their requirements in an open and machine-readable format. Such requirements can be defined and exchanged with the use of the IDS standard and a tool that helps in their definition. Here we can see how the stakeholder is able to specify the required level of information needs for their models and share them to others thanks to the open IDS standard. What this means for the client is that now, every time they require an IFC model, they also share their data requirements in the IDS format. Tools that make use of this standard are very important, as they can help both the client and the modeler in their flow. The modeler can use the IDS in the modeling phase and be sure that the model will contain the required information. The client, on the other hand, can use the very same IDS for defining requirements and checking of the model, all in an automatic way.
So it's a two-sided medal. Also, the clients get pushed to make better requirements of openBIM.
Yes, and this is a good thing, as will allow for the use of the openBIM at its best, with so many benefits for the clients and stakeholders, as well as for the end users. This example is showing a tool that, starting from any IFC model, can edit and enrich it with the information specified in the target IDS. As always, every time communication is needed between the parties, this can be done with the use of the BIM collaboration format, BCF. The IFC models, or any other document or file, can also be exchanged with the use of the buildingSMART open APIs, which allow seamless exchange between common data environments and clients, so that each actor can use different tools while being connected with each other. As we understood so far, BIM is about information, but keeping data quality high is difficult. The buildingSMART data dictionary is a service from buildingSMART that brings a set of helpful solutions. It is the single entry point for all levels of agreements, standards, national classification systems, and so on. Tools that use this service, like the one we are looking at, allows, for example, to enrich IFC models with the information contained in the bSDD, allowing the users to have a standardized workflow to guarantee data quality. Here we see an example of an IFC model that we downloaded from another CD and that is being enriched with the use of the bSDD. In particular, we classify object and assign properties with the use of the ATIM domain, an international classification standard for technical products.
Yeah, I also really like the fact that you're paying so much attention to the details of adding the references to the bSDD into the IFC file, for example. So those are the things that end users don't notice, but is extremely important for their future digitalization.
Exactly. The reference to the bSDD is very important, as this allows the IFC model to be connected with the standards contained in the bSDD, which in turn are connected to other standards as well, also thanks to the use of linked data. And last but not least, the bSDD can also be combined with the IDS standard for even more powerful workflows.
It's already an impressive workflow, but there's indeed still more to come as well.
Yes, I definitely agree. And also, for any further editing of the model, we have tools that operate directly on the IFC open format, as we really believe that the IFC is not just a static snapshot in time of the built asset, but a dynamic model that evolves over time. Here in particular we can see an example of how we can move around some objects and assign new properties. Here we are adding a new property set to the entity. And also we will add some properties with their values as well. Here we are adding another property. Here we see that the IFC model is updated in real time. We can then open the model in other viewers, showing the added informations and the entities that we have just moved. Here we can see the classification that we used of the ATIM domain and also the properties that we have just added to the model. Or we can upload the model on another CD in order to continue with another open data workflow.
It's really nice to see how you make such a complex technical topic so easy for the end users. I think that's why it's so exciting to visit the ACCA offices. There's a lot of advanced technology, but presented in a very simple way for end users.
Well, thanks for the compliments, and it's our pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you for your attention, and yeah, I hope this brings you some ideas about openBIM data workflows. So if anyone has questions, please write up in the chat. I think there will be time later for a Q&A session.
Yep, definitely. We have some 10 minutes left after the presentation from Kelvin. So please, if you have any questions for Michelangelo, feel free to post them in the chat and we will come back to them. Thank you, Michelangelo.
Thank you.
It was indeed a pleasure to enjoy the Italian hospitality. So it was a good reason to get out of the home office once more.
Well, thank you for coming visit us.
All right, then we're moving on to the next presentation and the final presentation in this block from Kelvin Cam. So let's bring Kelvin to the stage. Hi, Kelvin.
Hello, Leon. Hello, buildingSMART community.
So can you do a short introduction? You pre-recorded the video, but maybe just a couple minutes of who you are and what the project was about.
Sure. I am with buildingSMART USA, even though I've also been an ambassador and a global volunteer with buildingSMART for 2 decades and counting. And in this upcoming session, we try to put more attention on client-centric workflow. Let's not wait for the standards to be perfect. Let's see what we can do with even the emerging standard, and let's all be an active consumer and not just in the sideline. So we look forward to also getting your feedback and your comments. Hello, I'm Kelvin Cam with Strategic Building Innovation and with buildingSMART USA. In this session, I will be joined by my global teammates, partners, and clients to highlight the importance of client-centric workflows, while I'll also take a step back to last 20 years in which I've been working closely with a number of public agencies across 3 continents and also private developers, owners, and operators in the integration of client-centric workflows. In one of our ongoing projects, we are working with IFC, CityGML, and CCM to form an openBIM, openGIS data repository. The key is to make it scalable, repeatable, and informing at an urban city level scale. In this process, we are now working with well over 150 IFC models that we are checking and inducting into the BIM data repository. They are coming from a variety of BIM modeling applications from different authors through the use of IFC 2x3, IFC 4, and the key question we have is how do we ensure good quality assurance and good quality control? Of course, we know that individual BIM authors will need to be very diligent. Yet, from a client perspective, what more can we do to ensure that the quality is reliable? As we often see, that geolocation method may not be accurately used or standardized. There may be some IFC entity types that were incorrectly being used, and all these would have adverse impacts, in this particular case sponsored by the Lands Department of Hong Kong. And in this case, we are able to work with an emerging standard called the Information Delivery Specification, that has been started by the buildingSMART international community about 2 years ago, with the intent of coming up with a machine-readable information requirements that can be shared across different implementator software being used by different stakeholders. And the key is to also have an IDS XML that can be interchangeable and interoperable among different authors and software implementation. And one may wonder, what is the differences between more traditional file-based model checking versus what may be complementary with this IDS approach? Here comes one of my global partners, Mr. Hans Hendricks, joining us from the Netherlands.
My name is Hans Hendricks. I work as an independent BIM consultant in the Netherlands. I also work in a team of SBI, where we gained the first experience with IDS. Some experience that I have with ordinary BIM model checking. There are many issues that arise over and over. The model checking requires time and effort, and the result is depending very much on the person who is doing the model check. Some hurdles that I experienced. In many projects, the definition of what to deliver is unclear. Sometimes there is a lack of knowledge during the modeling, but also during the checking. And there are many manual settings with chance of errors. I see a lot of potential in using IDS. We are already noticing using IDS and creating guidelines that there is more attention to the process and in preventing the errors, as in quality assurance. Of course, the IDS checker itself remains focusing on identifying issues. I'm happy and proud to be part of this SBI team, where we have the opportunity to develop IDS and this IDS checker. It's an important step to increase the BIM quality by using buildingSMART IDS.
Thank you, Hans. Indeed, it's proud to be with the buildingSMART international community. Even though the IDS is only in its version 0.5, we've been working closely with our global team to identify what may be some opportunity to apply IDS for this agency-wide, territory-wide BIM and GIS data repository. In fact, we are coming up with some criteria that my colleague, Dr. Min Song, will be sharing. Min is joining us from California.
This is an example of specification we selected. And this specification was important to us because one of the things that you have to do in order to create a large urban scale model is to make the models very light. Because in the end, there will be hundreds or thousands of models, IPC models in the data repository or the 3D map. And if the model size is large, it's not going to perform well. So what this specification is doing is checking whether all the IPC furnishing elements have been excluded from the model, so that in the end, it helps making the openBIM and GIS integrated database or the platform very light. Another example of a specification here. So here, this is related to geolocation, and if you see in IPC, we have multiple ways of georeferencing your model. So even within only IPC 2x3, you have multiple ways of georeferencing, and IPC 4 has its own way of georeferencing. But the thing is, not all of those methods are ideal for our purpose. Ideally, when you upload an IPC model to a 3D map, you want it to automatically find its correct position on the 3D map. But some of the methods don't really have all the required information to do that. So for us, it's important to pick the best method, which in this case was the approach that's being used in IPC 4. So here the specification is checking whether the IPC 4 georeferencing is being used or not.
Thank you, Min. And be agile. Let's not wait for the IDS to be fully vetted and to be to slow down for maturity. Let's go ahead and implement it. So this is what we have done. We are working closely to go implement IDS, in our case using both BIM.works as well as Simple BIM. And you can see that without IDS implementation, it would be much more difficult to check the thousands of instances where the simplification may not be done appropriately, or that the naming convention or the object classification may not be following the standard. So how does IDS work? Let's hear from Ruben with BIM.works, joining us from the Netherlands.
I will be running the model checks for IDS Hong Kong. And what you will see here is all the different checks with the numbering that we've used in the Excel sheets that have been communicated, and the work report. And each number corresponds with one of the checks. So it's not a, so these are 13 or 12 checks. Green means that it is a success. Red means that it is an error. And you can drill down for each check to see more details. So what you can do is you can click this button and, for example, say I only want to see the errors. So you are filtering the 3D view by showing only the objects that are identified as being errors. And you can see that these are indeed the IFC furnishing element objects in this model. So if you click on an object, you can see the type here, furnishing element, IFC furnishing element. So these are all errors in this model, according to this IDS check.
And on top of the IDS, as agreed upon by BSI community, we understand that our client may also want further custom checking that may go beyond what IDS currently allow in version 0.5. So let's not stop. Let's also go work with commercially off-the-shelf technology to customize for them. Min will explain that a little bit further.
In the end, we had around 14 specifications we wanted to check. But one challenge was that, not all of them could be checked with a buildingSMART's IDS standard. Because, buildingSMART's IDS standard is, somewhat limited to non-geometry checks. And also, if you have multiple attributes and properties that need to be cross-evaluated at the same time, it's not easy to do so with buildingSMART's IDS standard. So for those more difficult ones, we decided to use other commercial tools like Simple BIM for checking. And for the IDS check following the buildingSMART IDS standard, we focused on the ones that you see here. And those were programmed into the IDS XML.
So in a nutshell, we want to focus on quality assurance and quality control. It's a matter of empowering both the repository gatekeepers to be able to run IDS checks and also supporting the BIM authors, empowering them as well with good IFC guidelines that have the schema, that have the IDS in mind. Sure, there's still a lot of responsibilities that we need to work with, and this is an active project that is work in progress. We look forward to sharing back with the buildingSMART community as the project unfolds and looking forward to teaming up together. And indeed, the value of the IDS work is that it can empower the clients, the professionals, and the operators. And in fact, that reminded me of what took place 20 years ago. For the past 2 decades, I have been a researcher at Stanford University Sci-Fi, where we were invited to work for the Finland government Senate properties in one of the first ever IFC applications in the world on the Aalto University renovation projects. At that time, we were drawing what we may call today a BIM diagram to identify that would IFC be in the center of this exchange? Can we have reliable bidirectional exchanges? And before long, we noticed that the technical reality would be different, that depending on the software implementation, some of the geometry, some of the information may not be dependent for a bidirectional and full fidelity exchange. Even though those were the challenges, it did not slow our team down from redeeming the promises of openBIM, such as 30 to 40% reduction of design documentation efforts, 50% time savings, and also much better value, life cycle value that we could present for the facility management phase. But it's also because of those specific framework and client-driven requirements that has also helped another implementation of openBIM to be more specific and to have the end in mind. That was the third public agency that we want to feature in this presentation, which is the US General Services Administration. In between 2003 and for the next decade or so, we have been focusing on what are the client-centric requirements, such as space, such as energy, such as circulation security, or quantity, that were needing us to really come up with an understanding of what are the specifications. That led to one of the first model view definitions that were generated in the BSI community. And at that time, we contributed to some 6 of them, working closely with the vendor partners, working closely with the MVD experts. 2 of them were Richard C. and Neely, who will be sharing with his perspective of how we have also learned from such MVD approach to what we see as the IDS approach that we just talked about. Yili.
Hello, my name is Jiri Hietanen, and I am the co-founder and CEO of DataCubist. I have a long history with model view definitions, or MVDs, dating back to the Concept Design BIM 2010 project with the General Service Administration in the US, Stadsbygg in Norway, and Senatte Properties in Finland. I was also the first MVD coordinator of buildingSMART International. Our current solution, SimpleBIM, is a further evolution of the MVD idea. Like MVD, it allows you to define what data is needed and to validate that the data is reliable and stored in the appropriate IFC data structures. MVD XML is the machine-readable representation of MVD, and we have an add-on to SimpleBIM that supports MVD XML in a little bit limited way, and it's done for Stadsbygg in Norway. But this is what it looks like. You have the model, and we can load an MVD XML file, and then we generate a SimpleBIM template based on this MVD XML data. And this SimpleBIM template is doing 2 things. First of all, it's creating groups for the validation, which we can see over here in the MVD validation groups. And it's applying the rules to those groups. And here you can see all the validation results for all of the groups. Pretty simple. We plan to support IDS in the same way that we support MVD XML. We don't have that support yet, but this is how it will look like. So here we have a very simple IDS requirement. It's basically saying that the model should not have any furnishing elements in it. And when we generate the corresponding SimpleBIM template, it will look like this. So first, we generate a group that contains all the furnishing elements. And then we set a rule that this group must be empty. So this is doing the same thing as this IDS definition in the background. And in SimpleBIM, it will look like this. So this model has 17 furnishing elements. It shouldn't have any. So this is flagged as a problem.
Thank you, Yili. So with the MVD approach started with the US and later on also brought it to Finland and Norway, we have seen that by a better, clear communications about the information requirements or the specification or the manual, that we are able to even use IFC and BIM and computing technologies of the time to demonstrate and to prove that we are able to run over 60,000 simulation of security violations in a matter of seconds, be able to improve the efficiency of spatial program validation from 50% to 98%, and be able to dramatically reduce the time for such validation from weeks down to minutes. Beyond public agencies in 3 different continents, my SBI team has also been working with private real estate developers to leverage open BIM solutions such as IFC, BCF to bring value to make a more informed design, construction, and property management decision. Working with SHKP, we have applied openBIM approach and workflows to a number of commercial and residential, as well as mixed-use projects. In one such project, we may be dealing with over 1,000 BIM files by a number of different design consulting teams using a number of different versions of the same application or different software applications at large. And we are able to bring them in through IFC to do model checking, to do model automation, and be able to then bring that in to meeting, such that during meetings when we have tens and tens of professionals spending valuable time, we can zoom in to where we need to make the most informed attention and decision. And so how to leverage BCF, it's also an emerging trend and workflow that we are standardizing through the use of our own developed climate-done solution to try to bring all the design, construction, rule set, and results into management attention. Reflecting back on the journey, it's also important to look forward to the future with all these open standard solutions in mind under the belt. Digital twin is certainly one of the more exciting future that is ahead of us. In fact, can we rely on the openBIM, openGIS repository that we just talked about to inform us with productivity and sustainability information? So let's hear from the Lands Department of Hong Kong, Nelson, about the vision of where we want to go beyond the IDS.
Now we are talking about the importance of IDS in planning and development of 3 phases of the BIM data repository. In phase 1, we harmonize the BIM standard provided by different contracts under government departments. Phase 2, we use the harmonized BIM data to update the 3D maps. In phase 3, we adopt the open standard in the BIM data repository to develop a BIM API in order to support other use cases such as valuations and territorialized 3D simulations.
Thank you, Nelson. And indeed, with such API, with such connectivity, we can do more than the static BIM, than the static asset representation. Such as back with the SHKP, we're able to turn one of the tallest buildings in the world to leverage IFC reliably and powerfully to allow us to not only benefit from BIM for facility management, asset management, but also connect that with different forms of Internet of Things, sensors, data that we can build upon. So in this project so far, we are starting to look into a portfolio of dozens and dozens of IoT networks, adding up to 3,000 and counting of individual sensors. Exactly where we can go with openBIM-based solutions and workflow, it still has a huge opportunity for all of us to team up together. But the key we want to highlight today is that technologies and standards may never be perfect, but rather staying back as a passive consumer and wait for complaints and wait for developments to fully take place, we should stay at the forefront to work with clients, to work with the openBIM workflow, and try to bring values into the forefronts. So once again, we're privileged to be here today at this international keynote and looking forward to teaming up with the buildingSMART international community for more workflows, for more client-centric value. On behalf of our global team, thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Kelvin. That was an impressive overview of 20 years of innovation almost. Let's also bring in Michelangelo on stage. We are exactly on time, so this was a perfectly timed session, but we're taking the liberty to run over time a little bit to answer some questions in the chat. So Michelangelo, kind of assuming that you have been reading in the chat as well, there was this very nice question on how are you actually adding those properties into IFC in the eTIM demo. That's obviously related to the whole discussion on using IFC as a reference or doing round tripping where you import, change the data and export again. Can you highlight a little bit on how you did that implementation?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, looking at the questions in the chat, they were asking if now IFC can be considered as a design format rather than just an exchange format. I will say beware when we use the word design. What this means for us at ACCA, we really focus on the fact that IFC is a format that we can work on. It's not that easy at the moment, but many of the use cases, especially from the facility management part, are doable. And we see more and more that we are developing tools and technologies to make more editing of the model. And I hope that also the standard will adapt, let's say with IFC 5, for example, or in the future to be more friendly to such use cases, because we see that there is really the need to make it editable as much as possible. I will not use the design word because I think that still we will need BIM authoring specialized in doing the design. For example, if you want to do a railway project, you will still need the BIM authoring because it is specialized in doing this, the project of the railway, for example. But at the extreme, at ACCA, our vision is that BIM authoring should do the design and the geometry part, but then the data, those requirements, those things are better left to specialized tools that can operate on the IFC model, so that can bring such, let's say, geometry or model, enrich it, and go forward in a flow that has been decided by the stakeholder with their strategy for their digital open data. And in particular for the bSDD, there are guidelines. BSI provides guidelines on how to enrich and put such information in the IFC model, such that this is enriched in a standard way. So everyone who uses this bSDD, whether it is a BIM authoring, a BIM tool, or whatever, is putting this information in the IFC model in the same way. And in this way, it is connected to the bSDD. And this connection in the bSDD means that then the bSDD itself is connected between the standards that are in the bSDD itself. And also, as we have seen from previous presentation, the use of linked data can then help even further in these connections.
Thank you. Yep, I think it's just to add to that. There's a lot of use of IFC as a reference instead of as a import and export as this round tripping, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. So yeah, I think ACCA really shows a nice way to work with that. So
yeah. I will just do one thing. Sorry for the example of the reference. I have seen plenty of models of IFC models, for example, that has this last maintenance date property. Let's say, for example, for a fire extinguisher, and has a date that is 5 years from now. Then the question to me is really natural. What will happen in 5 years when we want to update that property, or when we want to move this fire extinguisher from one place to another? There should be a simple way without going back to the authoring, maybe. Of course, if you need to rebuild your asset, then maybe you have to go back to the authoring, but still many of the use cases can be solved working on the IFC model.
Yeah, I think that's the whole principle of added value from open standards. Yeah, if you in 5 years' time or in 20 years' time, you can still use any kind of software you want.
Exactly.
I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat on the relation between IDM, MVD, IDS. As soon as I read those questions, I also think about PDTs and data dictionaries. This morning in the tech update, I showed a paper, which is a very extensive paper that really dives into the detail of the comparison between all of those. There's also some presentations and videos available on that. But this is not a short answer. So if you don't mind, I want to postpone that question and move on to indeed, I see it already on the screen, the next question on the topic of the comparison between all of these different standards. If you want more information, just send me an email and I'll get some videos and papers to you. But what I think is also indeed interesting is the question from Stijn van Schaik on the most easy way to create an IDS currently. And my answer would be that there is no easy way to create it. But still, Kelvin and his project managed to do it, and on a significant project as well. So, Kelvin, was it in any way limiting you that there's no easy way available yet, or in any way limiting that IDS is not 100% final yet, but still in development?
And I think that's exactly what we want to highlight in the past 20 minutes, is that, sure, they are not as easy as spoon feeding and automating and IDS XML yet. Hopefully they will be soon, but don't let that little bit of difficulty, little bit of first time thing to slow anybody down. I think as Léon pointed out that don't be shy. We were testing with a live project from Finland 20 years ago using technology after time of the day. We were testing with large kind of like courthouses and office building 18 years ago. And similarly, we are now testing with the IDS with a citywide projects with 150 IFCs coming in. And yes, the vision is that it can be further automated, further simplified, but don't let that be an excuse of us just being in a sideline. And my take is that in all cases, I think the power of IDS is that it's something that the buildingSMART community agree upon in terms of what those specifications may be like. And once we have that agreed upon, and that can help inform any particular projects and the establishment of the more traditional IDM. So I think IDM and IDS certainly go hand in hand. And as we know, a lot of the MVD tend to more help, like in the GSA case, software implementation, right? That may be a little bit, unlike some of the major cases like with GSA or StartSpeak, it may be also be for major organizations, but very often time we do see that that's the primary audience is to help with the software vendors. But we do agree that maybe when we can give Léon and team more time, we can really talk about how all this should be working in concert to one another. But once again, I also want to end with bringing the client workflow in the forefront, and don't wait.
Yep, thank you. That's a perfect answer, actually, Kelvin. Thank you so much. We've run 10 minutes over time, and I also want to give everyone the opportunity to have a small break. But I think your conclusion is right. If there's anything you need to remember from this session, is that there's already so much available and so much that can be applied in practice, and there really is no reason to wait. As you see, there's 2 presentations here that make the best use of what's already available yesterday. So yeah, the rest of the community can do that as well. So please, as a message to the community, follow these examples and try to accelerate these openBIM workflows. Thank you very much to both presenters. Looking forward to see the update in Montreal. Looking forward to see you in person again in Montreal. We are now having a 10-minute break, starting again at the full hour with the next session on standards and sustainability. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Goodbye.